Assalamu alaikum everyone and a very warm welcome. You're watching this amazing thing on all of the TCF socials. I am Sidra Iqbal. Dreams, empowerment, self-belief. The subjects which are very close to my heart, and I'm sure that you've landed here, so it's equally important to you. But more importantly, today, Citizens Foundation is bringing an exclusive conversation for you, which is all about keeping her dreams alive. Usually, when we talk about dreams, we don't make it gender specific. But in the current times, it's equally, in fact, a lot more important to be focusing on the girls' dreams. A little about PCF, those of you who are not very familiar. The Citizens Foundation is a non-profit organization that started back in 1995, and it was an initiative of a group of citizens who were concerned about how important education is for the coming generations, and we just don't have enough facilities. So today, Alhamdulillah, 25 years later, we have 252,000 students who are a part of the student body of TCF, and they are running these schools in the urban slums of Pakistan and the rural areas. And the total number of schools, Alhamdulillah, that we have are 1,567 schools. So why is the need to be here today? When we talk about education, especially in the developing world, there is that imbalance. And the imbalance is there because if you have 3 or 5 kids in Pakistan, and there are fewer resources, unfortunately, the state isn't sponsoring your kids' education, and you have to make a choice. The harsh reality is usually, and most unfortunately, you will probably prefer your son getting education. Why? Because you believe that A is going to be the breadwinner. There's a better life benefit that comes to that transaction. But here we are talking about how important it is for more than 50% of Pakistan's population, which comprises of girls and women. If you don't educate them right now, the future looks really bleak. So today we are giving a call out. First and foremost, I want to let you know that this is a very special campaign. The campaign is special because it's about, usually we talk about Transformation Tuesdays, but it's a Giving Tuesday. The hashtag is very intriguing. From today, which is the 29th of November, all the way to the 1st of December, the 3 days is all about giving, and actually whatever donation you make, it will be matched. What do we mean by that? Everything that you donate, any amount that you donate, is going to be doubled by our very generous donors. So right now you have a QR code right here. We are across all socials. We are across all 4 territories, which is Pakistan, UAE, Canada, US, UK, 5 territories actually. And what you can do is donate and open your heartstrings and do it. The need is very severe because Save the Children recently made a report, and it says that the 12 countries that are most at risk of seeing girls drop out of school, and the learning gap to be widened, unfortunately, also features Pakistan. So we are here today to make sure that doesn't happen. Let me also take you to the story of TCF, because this institution, this organization, this very powerful network has been doing just that for the last 25 years, and today we are internationally recognized. The Economist calls TCF the largest network of independently run schools around the world. So let's hear more about it. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a wonderful gentleman who I look up to as my mentor, someone who's also played his part in this very institution. He is TCF's co-founder. But before I bring him on, let me first introduce our campaign today through this wonderful video. Why it's a pressing issue, why it's important to give today, and what happens if we don't join forces and we don't give. Let's take a look at this video.
Ali, Abdullah, Asad, Amna, Amna, Mahnoor, Maryam, Maryam, Saad, Sarah,
Each one of us is born with a dream, and our dreams are sometimes impossible, ridiculous. People try to convince us that they're just not possible. But today, we're just not talking about our personal dreams. We're talking about dreams of millions of girls who have the potential to change the world, change our society, and indeed bring about that positive momentum that we all crave for. Year 2020 has had many disadvantages. It has definitely not gone as anyone's New Year resolutions. But what we believe in, that in the worst of challenges, the humanity can come together and create something exceptional, something so powerful. So I think we are all back on our drawing boards, and what we'd like to have is a more impactful strategy, especially for the girls, because all the women who've achieved something, we stand on the shoulders of many of those who perhaps have sacrificed their dreams. Maybe we know some of them as our grandmothers, as our aunts, or even as our mothers. But now it's time to change that. It's time to give every girl the power to dream and to make her dreams come true. Coming together for this very powerful session today, we have a brilliant panel, girls and women who've achieved brilliant things in life. But before I bring them on, let me welcome, as I mentioned, my mentor, somebody I really look up to for his spirit of service. I think what I've learned more as a global goodwill ambassador for TCF is everyone I meet in the team has this really entrenched innate desire to serve the community. And it is that intention that is bearing fruit. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the co founder and somebody who we see as a guiding force at TCF. Let's welcome Mr. Mushtaq Chhabra.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Mushtaq Saab. Such a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much, Sidra, for your very kind introduction. And I'm really honored to be here talking to so many nice people in the world over, I would say. So
it brings me so much joy whenever I look at the numbers. I mean, to know that TCF school has 12,000 teachers and all female staff, many of them are first generation learners and our own networks alumni. And now, Alhamdulillah, we can also boast that not just we are the largest independent network of schools, but we ensure that 50% of our student body is girls, which is mashallah a feat. But was that always the vision, or did that evolve over time? Would be my question to you.
I'm sorry, the sound went a little awry. Can you just repeat that question, please, if you don't mind?
Now, Alhamdulillah, we have 50% of the student body as girls. Was that always the ambition, and was there any pushback from the communities where the schools operate that, okay, we'll send our boys, but not the girls? How was the beginning? How was the journey?
The question has always been in front of us, right from the word go, when we decided to build the first 5 schools in the slums of Karachi. And this was one of our cardinal principles, that this organization will build schools nationally, which means that not Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, but in every village and every slums of Pakistan. And secondly, it would be a co-education system. We were dissuaded, we were discouraged that you can't do that in Pakistan. You know, people will be hounding you. People will not send their girls to school. But Alhamdulillah, after 25 years, as you said, that we have got more than 130,000 girls in our schools. And I would also like to add here that the students who come out of merits after doing the high school in TCF, obviously the girls outnumber the boys. I'm proud to say that. So there is no question about, no problem resolves itself. Of course, you had to take some efforts, you know. You have to create an environment for the girls. You had to build proper buildings, you know, and we had to have clean toilets. This is a very important. A lot of people don't realize that for girls it is very important to have, you know, clean and safe toilets. And the biggest plus point, Sidra, is that we have an all-female faculty. So that's of that creates such a comfort and such a secure sort of a environment for the parents to send the girls. And hence you've seen the results out there, that if you look at the girls coming out of TCF, we've reduced the child marriages in the communities where TCF has schools. And we have got girl students studying right through college and university level.
Shahzad, I have a question. So, just like right now, one of our biggest dangers is because of COVID, there might be dropouts. I'm wondering, have you ever had, similar challenges that yes, they would send the girls to school, they'll send them for a couple of years, and then lo and behold, the community or the family would think that this is now time that the girl should be married. So, if they try to drop out of the school, does the staff, the teachers, and the principal, they follow up and find out where the student has disappeared? Is that a network's
uh,
initiative?
I'll like to first address we had a very big challenge on our hands when the pandemic struck the world, and then obviously Pakistan. We had to have a continuity for our children, both boys and girls, but more girls, because we didn't want them to drop out, and we didn't want them to go away. And the parents, forcing them into going into marriages or whatever. So the TCF prepared a plan where they distributed workbooks and had a wherever possible digital learning programs. We also started a TV program with the government of Pakistan, the education ministry of known as Ilm Ka Angan, and that was superb and very successful, very well received, not only for the TCF children, but across the nation, across the. So coming back to the other part of TCF builds schools in the communities, right in the heart of the communities. And TCF makes it into a neighborhood activity, which means that the principal, the teachers, the staff go around the community, are known by the families, and are always, if there are any important discussions and any important events taking place in the family, the principal is the first one to find out. Hence, hence,
And
you know,
what I love about you're absolutely spot on with that, Mushtaq Saab. And I've also noticed that the girls, because they're first generation learners, they become the teachers for their families. So their teachers, the school staff, becomes like this extended group of mentors for the entire community. And we've really
absolutely.
seen girls pursue not just graduating or becoming teachers. They're now accepted in the best of professional colleges and schools across Pakistan and even abroad. So, Mushtaq Sahab, how is the TCF network actually responding to COVID? And some of the facts or some of the predictions are rather glaring. I mean, people are saying that now the danger of girls dropping out is looming stronger than ever. And we've just been hit by the second wave. The school had reopened, but now the schools have been shut down again for the next 2 months. How is TCF preparing to actually combat the second wave of COVID-19 in Pakistan?
Well, as I mentioned that the first wave was a longer sort of a break for the kids, and TCF has already been on the forefront and prepared a connectivity or a proper. You see, most of our teachers and principals and our volunteers, the alumni who have come out of our system, have gone from home to home, house to house, creating a connection with these kids, both girls and boys. And, that is a very strong message they have been passing on, that they're not left them out in this pandemic. And as such, our our kids have had this the great sort of force behind them, that they could discuss, obviously keeping the procedures, the operating procedures in place. Hence, we already have a system in place, like I said, where it's a regular contact and connection with the school without going to school. the children are they prepare their lessons on workbooks and put it back into the volunteers bag, and they're given fresh assignments, fresh work. So that's the biggest, but obviously there is going to be a lot of loss of work hours in schools, and that is one thing which is very major for our kids who come from slums and from villages.
But Mushtaq Sahab, over the years, we are gladly at that juncture in time when education is no longer a demand problem. Like has been at it for the last 25 years. The
Right.
families, the parents, they do want the girls to be education. So we've crossed one of the bigger hurdles when we used to think that culturally, traditionally, especially in the strata that TCF is serving,
Sorry.
and we're talking about urban slums, we're talking about the most underserved areas of Pakistan, it is no longer that the families don't want the girls to be educated. You very rightly pointed out, I did a report on my show on World Menstruation Day. And one of the key reasons why girls drop out of school is because when they reach adolescence, the government school facilities has no toilets, and they have to walk for many hours. They have to get to their schools, and it just becomes too cumbersome. And if the girl drops out at that tender age, then the gap is too wide. She's already missed out on essential lessons, like you pointed out. She feels discouraged about going back to class, and lo and behold, she's married off in a couple of years. I also want to share with our viewers that there's a very interesting study that has been conducted recently, and it says it's by the UN, it's by the United Nations, and it says that every additional year that a girl will spend in school increases her ability to earn by 50%. And this is the most startling part, every additional year that a girl spends in school reach actually increases her life expectancy by 80% because she's not getting married, because she's not being forced into becoming
Producing
a mother
babies.
at a tender age. You're actually giving her additional years to her life. Mushtaq Saab, so what's the ask today? We're asking people in the next 3 days, whatever they donate is going to be doubled.
Can
What else would you like to add to that?
can I also add on, Sidra? There's one very important aspect which my viewers should know, that there's been a World Bank study also, that for every a school being 600 meters away from a community creates a 10% dropout in enrollment for girls, because boys can walk wherever they want to walk or how far they can walk, but the parents are sometimes secure sending their girls out. So this is why TCF is so important and so successful, that because we open schools right into their homes, right outside their homes, so the girls just walk into the schools. They don't have to go anywhere. It's a neighborhood activity. It's there, and that is the reason the enrollment is so robust, and the parents are comfortable, and the girls. So my ask is that this is one time when, COVID or COVID, we need everybody's help to come out, and open their hearts and open their wallets and do something really, extra for the children and for the girls students of Pakistan, because they need education more than any time ever. So please, Sidra, please convey to them time and again. I'm going to passionately appeal to my supporters, my donors, my friends, that please come out. And this is such a beautiful time when their money is going to double up, their money is going to be matched, and these are the 3 days they can really change the scene of Pakistan, change the future of Pakistan.
And imagine, there are people who would turn around and say, okay, this is the Black November, the Black Friday sale, and everybody wants a great deal. I mean, I love the fact that this is such an amazing deal where you can double up your donation, you can double up the good luck, you can double up the care that you are extending to society. You may want to give in $10, but it will double up as 20, and it will really help us double up the impact. So I want you, once again, Mashak Saab, my last question to you before I call in the panelists. For a lot of girls, their dream is also to teach. And while we're talking about the students of TCF, I also want to tell people that there are so many, smaller schools and smaller networks that have unfortunately shut down during the COVID because they just could not financially sustain the pressure of being shut for 5 or 6 months when we had the first wave. So we also take credit in the fact that the teachers who have a passion for teaching and their dream is to continue teaching, the entire TCF staff stays on. Nobody has been laid off. Not a single school has been shut out. So, Mushtaq Saab, before you go, please also talk about the dream of our teachers and our principals. I mean, some of them I've interacted with, the kind of pains they take for being there at the school, even if they have to change 3 buses and get there, and their daily commute is 4 hours, they do it willingly, they do it lovingly, and with a lot of passion. So, I'd like you to say something about them as well.
Sidra, the story is girls and women. This organization is full of heroes from the females of our team. You that there's an exemplary sacrifice which comes out of these teachers, these principals. They are mothers, they are their wives, but they devote such a uh, openness with the kids. Many a time we have seen in our schools that these teachers stay back with the students who are weak in their studies, and they sit down and try to coach them. Many times, like we saw in the COVID, we saw in the earthquake, these teachers and principal would go out of their line of duty. They don't have to go and risk their lives in times in the pandemic. Their job is to teach, but they went out and they do things which are exemplary. So we are really proud of them. We salute them. We salute them because they are the game changer. They are changing the landscape of Pakistan.
Very true. And they're the first ones to hold their hands and guide these girls. Thank you so much, Mushtaq Saab, for being here. Once again, it's always a pleasure to touch base with you and to learn more about the passion which actually has founded TCF. So thank you once again for being here with us. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching us on our socials, it's time to take this forward now. And there's so much excitement coming your way because we have powerful conversations. These girls, these ladies will be sharing their own stories with you. I also want to once again remind you that from today, which is the 29th of November, all the way till the 1st of December, these are 3 days which is going to commemorate on the Giving Tuesday, which is the 1st of December. We would like to once again tell you that whatever you will donate to this brilliant cause of TCF is going to double up. The QR code is right there. You'll find ways, just scan that and you'll know how to donate. Whatever you would like to give in will help us in keeping her dreams alive. I'd like to call in my first guest for the evening. She's a creative director at Riffi Media. It's a film production company and a media consulting. She has more than 15 years of experience in the TV industry as a producer, as a director, across factual TV programs. So I'm really hoping that she'll have some interesting, insightful facts to share with us. Her brand is of authentic storytelling. And some of these stories can be heart-wrenching, but if they end in a beautiful way, if there is something that will bring a smile to your faces, what kind of impact has she had listening and creating and bringing these stories to you? We'll learn more about that. And of course, the power of communication, which we so need in today's day and age. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Riffi Khan.
Thank you so much for that epic introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today and support this incredible cause, which is very close to my heart.
It's so good to have you, Riffi. First and foremost, you're a girl yourself. You've had 15 years of wonderful work behind you, strong credentials. What does keeping her dreams alive? Because you're a creative person, I wanted to know how are you actually translating that, and what kind of meaning are you deriving from it?
keeping a girl's dream alive is very much about encouraging her to find her passion, to find that gift. Every single girl, obviously boys as well, are born with a gift of something. There's an inner desire that comes from inside to create something, to do something. And it's to tap into that and to let that flourish and concentrate on that and find an avenue, because it may not be the respectable career or job. You know, I went into television, which wasn't seen as that a respectable avenue to go. But there was this, I grew up on fairy tales. And for me, storytelling was very much, you know, dreams come true. You can, you know, everything can work out. You can have a happy ending. But how did I find that path when my father grew up, you know, in a village in Kashmir, in rural areas where no girl was ever educated? It was a completely alien concept. And we moved in, you know, he came over here and I was born, and the community never sent anyone to university. It wasn't a done thing. And school, thankfully, in the UK is compulsory. So we had to go to school. So the external challenges were, as soon as the girl finishes, all my cousins and people I grew up with, at 15, you had to leave school and get married. That was the done thing. For my sister and I remember thinking, you know, one of the ways that we can delay that was by staying in education for longer. That was one way, but that was a battle that we had to fight. It wasn't straightforward. There was a lot of negative pressures, just like there would be in Pakistan, from, you know, allowing your daughters to study. You know, what's going to happen? Will they become more intelligent than the boys? Will they get ideas above their station? You know, and losing control and maybe the values. So that was difficult. And internally, you know, I wasn't the brightest child growing up, so it was quite difficult for me to learn as a brother and sister. So I really struggled. You know, I remember mum teaching me alif b, and I would say b alif, you know, the very basics. It was such a struggle. And so it was very easy for me to be labeled as a dumb or stupid. It didn't come naturally to me. And I think for a lot of young girls going to school, it's very easy to be put off because you might not be as bright as your siblings or as your brother. But all that happened is I was a slow starter. But I always kept my dream, which was, I believed in happy endings. I believed that there would be a way for me to fulfill my dream. And I didn't know at the time it was Miss Storytelling. At the time,
Riffi, if I may interject, I mean, it's a very important nerve that you've hit. I mean, a lot of girls in Pakistan are rather meritorious. They're usually class toppers, just like Mushtaq Chhabra was also alluding to. So I wonder, sometimes girls do it really out of pressure. I mean, even if you're not an A-star student as a boy and you're not getting the top grades, getting you to school and keeping you in school, there's no question asked. Parents will willingly continue paying. But in case a girl is not good at studies, sometimes the payoff is, okay, since you're not academically excelling, you can't have any other dream, might as well get you married off. I mean, it is a harsh reality, right? How do you view that? I mean, academic excellence is the doorway to being able to dream. What's your take on that?
Very tough if you're a girl that likes to draw pictures. I loved art. So obviously that's not going to sit well with, you know, my siblings who may be doing science or that type of thing. So automatically the fact that I loved drawing and art was my favorite subject meant that there was no one in the community, there's no role models around me to encourage my parents to even understand that that was a thing, that was a vocation, that may well be a career and a dream for someone. So I agree, it's such a difficult road to go into careers that aren't the traditional banker, lawyer, dentist, doctor, engineer. But I did do the normal thing. I fell in love with economics. I did economics. I went to one of the best universities in the world of economics to study economics and politics and law. And when I finished, it's really interesting. I was meant to go into banking, but I had this opportunity where I did a film production course to pass some time. My sister sent me an advert. And I was outside filming pictures, putting the story together. And that was the thing. I fell in love. I completely fell in love. And I remember thinking that this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I would do this if I never got paid. This fulfills me in a place internally that nothing else will ever reach. And that's where I knew it was the right path.
Chord, another raw chord that you've hit on, Riffi, is when you mentioned the Pakistani-born British community in Pakistan, in UK, and you very rightly pointed out. I mean, just from the surface, whatever little interaction I've had, they imagine Pakistan to be of the year that they had left and stepped out. So for them, some of them, they're essentially still living in the 1980s and 70s, and they've, and I love the fact that this community holds Pakistan so close to their heart, but at the same time, they're also holding on to some very outdated traditions. For example, getting a girl married off very young, not giving her a career ambition. Do you think that's changing? Just like you mentioned, I mean, UK offers free education. There are girls in the community like yourself who are wonderful examples of what girls can do. Do you think that's changing? For the second generation, now British, but having strong Pakistani roots community?
I think it is. I think we've been the pioneers in my community. My sister was the very, very first person to fight to go to university. And there was a battle with my dad and the community that we were in. And then I was able to follow suit purely because nothing much was expected of me. So I kind of slipped in underneath that. And my brother obviously was meant to go because he went on to become a doctor. That was the person they were really, really pushing. And I think the fact that we went, we came back, we haven't turned into some kind of green monsters, and when we haven't lost our values, and we've managed to establish ourselves in careers which ultimately they did respect. When I first went to television, my mother said, "Oh my goodness, no, why? What is this television business? I don't know anything about it." But when my name appeared on the credit for the first time, that's when my mum and my dad and my family and the community, okay, this is something to be proud of. This is something respectable and you can succeed. So I think that has changed because more and more girls are going. There is a pressure to get married still and obviously have children, but that's been delayed a little bit till after university. That's very much the norm. So yeah, I'm glad to say it's just
Right. And what about the notion of marriage? I mean, we were discussing offline how girls are unfortunately led to believe that it's either or. I mean, you can either have a successful career या आपकी एक अच्छी family life हो सकती है. By the way, while we are continuing this, there are lots and lots of comments that are coming for you. People are appreciative of the fact, Riffi, that you always extend yourself to charitable causes, and we are so proud and so lucky to have you for our Dreams, Empowerment and Self-Belief initiative, where we're talking about girls' education and keeping her dreams alive. So once again, thank you from all of us at PCF. Again, coming to the notion, हम क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग हमें पाकिस्तान में देख रहे हैं तो थोड़ा सा मैं उर्दू में भी बात कर लूं कि लड़कियों को ये कहा जाता है कि या तो शादी या फिर करियर, दोनों को साथ चलाना बहुत मुश्किल है और लोग मानते भी नहीं है. मैंने कल परसों भी एक प्रोग्राम किया था जिसमें लोगों ने कहा पढ़ी लिखी हो या कुछ भी हो, गोल रोटी बनानी आनी चाहिए. तो आपको लगता है कि we can change the mindset and somehow let people know that girls are amazing at multitasking and they can manage both? What's your take?
Well, I grew up in a typical conservative, traditional Pakistani household. I learned how to make roti really well. And the andi, it was something that I did, my sister and I did every weekend. We knew how to make it, put on a nice banquet, do the wash up. So domestically, I am well trained. That's something I can do. What bothers me is that I remember a good friend of mine said a few years ago, but isn't having a baby and being a mother enough? And that was from a very educated male friend. And I just thought, gosh, how can it be enough? If I know I can do more, if I can achieve more, I should go for it. There's that inner feeling of what is my potential? What more can I do? Can I have a career? Can I have a family? Can I maintain my charity work? How much more is it? Our capacity as women to do more is infinite. And so I don't understand how we have women going into space. We have women that are running marathons in the Olympics. There are so many things that women can do and have a family. Just look around us in the world. We have the same brains as a man. We have the same energy. We have the same passions, the same dreams. There is nothing different, really, when it comes down to it. So it doesn't sit well with me. And I think that's where attitudes need to change from both men in our community as well as the women, that you can do both. And actually technology and the way the society has evolved allows us, I have, cleaning lady, we have, fantastic facilities in wherever we are, that as I earn more money and do well economically, I am able to have a much easier, relaxed life.
Absolutely. So just like they say, I think I'm remembering, they say behind every successful man, there's a woman, and behind every successful woman, there's another woman who's making sure that her hair looks great, her clothes are ironed, and her kids are looked after. Do you think women do enough for women? Like, we are women and we've gotten together to empower other girls, but do you think we do that enough, Riffi?
For me personally, the work I do in communication, I do is all pro bono work, is specifically because I don't think women have learned how to speak up for themselves in a really nice tone, to find their voice and ask for what they want. So many, myself included, I've had to learn this the hard way. I see so many girls that are scared to ask their parents, I would like to do this, but I think I'll get a no. I'll probably get disapproval. And none of us want to let our parents down. Nobody wants to disappoint their parents. We do want that praise. We want to make them proud of us. So the ability to ask for what you want in a nice way and consistently is the starting point. Find your voice, ask for it, and be willing to get a no. It's okay, but just keep asking. If you keep pushing, there will be, and I believe if you believe in the Almighty or the forces above us, that there will be a flicker of hope. There will be one tiny avenue. And then I suggest grab onto that avenue and just put your full force behind it. And who knows what miracles will happen. My dreams came true.
At this juncture, this is a perfect, exciting time because I'd like to invite another one of my guests to join this conversation. We have with us the wonderful Sabrina Siddiqui. Ladies and gentlemen, she is a national politics reporter at the Wall Street Journal and a political analyst at CNN. She has previously covered national politics at The Guardian, HuffPost, and the Bloomberg News. She has covered both the Trump and the Obama administrations and the presidential elections in 2012 as well as 2016. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's welcome Sabrina Siddiqui. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. So I just thought I'll warm you up in this before we invite our third guest into the conversation as well. Sabrina, we've been talking about, keeping her dreams alive, and what an exciting time. You're in the US, you've been covering the politics, and for the first time, Vice President-elect is a woman. How was that moment? How was that moment when you were covering it? I mean, when she was giving her inauguration speech, it just blew us away. How did you feel as a journalist?
Well, I think what it felt as a journalist was watching history unfold, and I have been covering national politics here in the United States for 10 years now. This was my third presidential election. I've covered, in addition to that, 3 other midterm elections and every aspect of the US government. And so the fact that after 244 years of this country's history, voters finally sent a woman to the White House in the form of Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, there's really no, I think, overstating the historical significance of that moment. But it also says something that it took 244 years to get there, and that we still have not actually had a woman as president here in the United States, which many people look at as one of the most, if not the most developed nations in the world and a leading superpower on the global stage. So that kind of tells me this conversation is a lot about gender inequality, how even the most advanced of countries still have so much work to do when it comes to achieving equity for across genders and having representation among women in positions of leadership and positions of power. And certainly that's something that I've taken with me in my journey. I really, enjoyed, and I think one of the comments Riffi made that touched me is that we didn't have a lot of role models. When we were growing up, there weren't people who looked like us, people who had similar names, especially if you're a child of immigrants, as I am as well. My parents are from Karachi, Pakistan. We didn't have people to look up to because women had not been given that same opportunity that was given to us, and that we therefore carry with us every day. The fact that we were given that opportunity to succeed, to dream, and that's what we're trying to push forward, and we're trying to pay it forward by making sure that every opportunity that we afford to boys and men in society should also be afforded to girls and women.
Spot on, Sabrina. And may I now take this opportunity to invite another lady of substance to the conversations. She's definitely a superstar from Pakistan, globally acclaimed, and more importantly, she has also helped a lot of girls dream, because just as you rightly pointed out, it's so important to have role models. And she tells you that it is possible to stand your ground and actually make a mark in the global arena. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the amazing Mahira Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Mahira.
Walaikum assalam, Sidra.
It is such a pleasure to have all you ladies here, and thank you, Mahira, for joining us this evening as well. You were talking about dreams, we were talking about goals. I think everybody would love to know. Your journey has been spectacular. Was that always a dream, or did it evolve with time? Did you take it a day at a time? We want to know your secret of success.
Well, thank you for having me. Hi, Sabrina. Hi, Riffi. I hope I'm getting the names right. I honestly, I always wanted to be an actor. I always dreamt of being in the movies. That was always the dream. But I don't know if I can tell you, I always say this, I don't know if there is a secret or a formula to success, I do know that there are certain things that I stood up for, certain things I stood against, certain things that came my way, and I knew that these are the hard choices in life that I would have to make because I wanted to go somewhere. That I did take a day at a time, but I always knew that this is where I want to be. So I definitely knew that, but yes, I took it slowly.
I think a lot of young people today would like to be in the public eye, and thanks to social media, Sabrina, your job, my job is becoming more difficult. Young girls want to be citizen journalists. But do you think a lot of girls aspire for fame for the sake of fame? What's your take on that, Sabrina?
Well, look, I think that ultimately it still comes from a desire to achieve something and to be recognized, that you're bringing a certain value, you're bringing some kind of skill set to the table, and you hope that that hard work pays off. And of course, we live in a very social media friendly environment, so sometimes people use that as a metric for success. But I think just kind of going back to the idea here, it's that every girl should be given that opportunity to pursue whatever career path it is that she chooses and to achieve whatever she strives to achieve. And sometimes for some people that might just be some kind of social media presence or online personality, but for many people it'd be to be a doctor, a woman, a journalist, an engineer, an actress, a singer. So, I think that for us, our job here is to help one another and to make sure that we are advocating for one another and we are encouraging one another to have these conversations and open up a dialogue within our communities where there is still a lot of entrenched misogyny and sexism, and where there still is not that equivalent placing boys and girls on an equal pedestal, to have those dialogues and say, look, if you're educating your son, you should also educate your daughter. If you're encouraging your son to follow his dreams, wherever that takes him, you have to also encourage your daughter to follow her dreams and be supportive of where it is that she wants to go. And so for me as a journalist, just to kind of go back to your question about my identity, I'm often the only one in, whether it's the White House press room, whether it was on the Biden campaign trail, most of the time I was certainly the only Pakistani American. There are times when I was the only woman of color, period. And so I think that is what we're up against. That's the uphill climb here, is to make sure that we are diversifying the spaces that we see and that we are making sure that there is that equal representation across every industry, wherever it is that a girl may see herself, that we are the ones who help her get there.
And I think that goes in a long way when you want to talk about empowerment and self belief, many a times you'll be the only one in the room representing yourself, and probably you wouldn't even have any cheerleaders. Myra, you're very familiar with that. I mean, I'm sure that there have been failures, there have been plans that didn't go the way you would like them to, especially because I think we're all here for the cause. But even for us, it's probably an anomaly. It's probably something that we can't even imagine, where a young girl child is denied education. So you have followers all over Pakistan, all over the world, जिनके जहन में भी अगर ये मुगालता है कि बच्चियों को वापस स्कूल नहीं भेजना, अब पैसे कम हैं, कोविड की वजह से जॉब चली गई है, बेटा है चलो उसको पढ़ा लेते हैं, बेटी को नहीं पढ़ाते. What would you like to tell these families, and how would you tell them that no, education is a must and that shouldn't even be a question?
Well, पहली बात तो ये है कि मुझे बहुत दफा सिद्रा मुझे इतने सारे जब फैमिली या लोगों से मिलती हूँ, whether I'm at an airport or I'm standing somewhere or even shooting, there's so many people who will come up to me, so many kids who will come up to me, parents will also come up to me and say, our daughters want to be like you, but uski, वो ये हो रहा है उसके साथ, या पढ़ नहीं पा रही, पता चलता है that she's getting married or whatever it may be. Or they don't, or sometimes you don't have enough money. There's so many families, they don't have enough money. So they have to make a choice to, send their boys to school or their girls to school. And more often than not, I would say 90% of the time, they choose to send their boys to school because they feel he's the breadwinner. And so that's how it must be. I mean, I'm very, very privileged to have had an education and an equal sort of opportunity education as my brother did. But I always talk to these girls, boys, parents, and I say, look, you look at me, and so much of my success has to do with education. This is not we take it very lightly that what does education do? A lot of times, even as actors, this is something which it's something that pinches me, that, oh wait, so if you want to be an actor, do you really have to study? Do you have to? Of course you do. Education gives you exposure. Education gives you awareness. I think that is the basic thing. I mean, if I am educated, I know my rights. I know what I will believe in eventually. I know what I don't want to believe in. I know what I want to, who I'd like to vote for, who I don't want to vote for. There are so many things that comes under education, and then eventually that helps you make choices in life. That secondly, for a lot of people in Pakistan, I completely, sometimes I do understand. I mean, I have so many. There are people who work at my place, and I sit and talk to them and I say, क्यों अपने बच्ची को क्यों नहीं भेज रही, right? So I know someone जो मेरे साथ काम करती थी, and she would say कि if I have a choice to send a boy or a girl, I will send my girl to school. So I said, why? She said, well, because I don't know about a man, he can still pick up some, do mazduri and go out in the field and work. But this woman, even if she gets married, she's probably going to teach her children at home. And I was like, yeah, that's a good enough explanation, so long as she's sending her girls to school. But मैं क्या कह सकती हूँ, Sidra? All I can say is that, why do we make this? Why do we even think of it like that? That it's a boy or a girl? Why? Because I just don't understand this differentiation. Because there shouldn't be any. This is just something which is age old. That's just how it's been. That's what I can hear myself. Am I echoing?
No, you're not. Carry on.
So I just don't understand that. But what I have to say, and this is on a positive note, that in the last 10 years that I've had this career, I've seen a lot of change. We go into colleges, we go into schools, and we give these lectures, and suddenly I see more girls. Not only do I see more girls, I see more girls talking very openly about their dreams and what they want to do and how they want to achieve them. And that is something which I'm not sure if this is a global change. I think it is, but definitely in Pakistan, this is a societal change, which I've seen with my own eyes because we see it firsthand.
Absolutely. In fact, I just want to add one thing to this. Very recently I saw this particular interview of Reese Witherspoon, and I'm sure all you ladies can relate to it. She in the recent past has become a producer, and a lot more of her work is going to be about stories of women, because she thought, sooner or later we all come across that point in a movie where everybody turns around, and especially a girl squeals, so what do we do now? And on the other hand, she said, even little children, they are told that if you are ever lost or you're in an emergency, look for an adult woman, and more often a woman knows what to do. But somehow we stereotype her to be a damsel in distress, not knowing what to do. Do you think that's going to change? And that must change because of education. Before I let you ladies, give us your take on that, I must remind all our viewers कि हम यहाँ पे एक बहुत ही special cause के लिए हमारे आज के दिन की theme है, हमारे इस discussion की theme है keep her dreams alive, which is basically about keeping girls in school because of COVID-19 and the extraordinary year that we've had 2020. There's a great danger that a lot many girls are going to drop out of school. So what you see on your screens right now is a QR code. You may be in Pakistan, Canada, UAE, UK, US. You can actually donate. And the brilliant part is that whatever you donate between the 29th of November to the 1st of December is going to be doubled. So while you're looking for that perfect Black Friday sale, this is it, guys. It's on a Sunday, but for the next 3 days, you get to double your impact. And that's going to keep a lot of girls in school. So let me bring my wonderful panel back and let's hear from them. We usually paint the girls to feel distressed, helpless. Education can and must change that. How do we make that happen? Riffi, if I may begin with you.
And I think it starts with labeling, because women are meant to be timid, polite, amiable, nice, happy. And if you express an opinion or say something, it's not just the men, it's the women as well. I think she's demanding, she's difficult, she's opinionated. And all those terms are seen as derogatory. So that labeling has to start, and that has to change with the women, because in a typical office, I've seen this happen. If a woman says something, the man will quite often say, oh, she's quite demanding, she's quite headstrong. And the women then automatically, subconsciously stop expressing their opinions because they don't want to be labeled by the men in the company as headstrong or difficult. So that needs to change. Secondly, women are quite formidable beings. I mean, the fact that a woman is able to give birth, the amount of power and energy involved, that strength that every woman has, she doesn't have to go to a gym, she doesn't have to work out. She creates this incredible force to give birth. That's the strength of a woman. How can you possibly see her as a damsel in distress when she has that much power innately gifted to her?
Wonderful response, Riffi, and that gives us a lot to think about. Sabrina, what would you say? A lot of women identify with being helpless, and sometimes they buy into the whole victim story. They never stop seeing themselves as victims.
Well, I think that's a byproduct of what has still been a patriarchal society, and that is across the map. It's not just in Pakistan, it's all around the world, where you have had a male-dominated society at every level since the beginning of time. And so it's natural that it will be a generational struggle to bring everyone along the way as we're trying to change this mindset. And that means that there are a lot of women who are victims of that patriarchy. And so, of course, we have women who have some internalized misogyny, who don't often see what they're capable of because they've been told by society their entire lives that these are your limitations. This is your place in society. Luckily, generationally, you are seeing that change. That's why people like us are having this conversation today. And a lot of it has to do with the phrasing, as Riffi was talking about, the labels that we apply to women, and also just the choices that we place before women. Men are never asked to choose, but for women, it's always a choice. Are you going to go to school, or are you going to stay at home? Are you going to have a career, or are you going to get married? It shouldn't be either or. Are you going to be able to be there for your children if you're working? No one asks men who go to work if they're present enough in their children's lives. It's only a burden that we place on women. And so that is, we just need a wholesale shift in how we talk about this culturally. I mean, we were all telling stories about how many people we know ourselves who have made that choice of whether or not to send a girl or a boy to school. I mean, when I was growing up, had a friend, I asked her, a friend of mine who is also Pakistani, how come you're not in school? And she said, well, my parents can only afford to send some of us to school. And so they're saving that money for my two brothers. And she said it so casually. It didn't, to her, that was just the reality of the society that we live in. And so she wasn't allowed to dream in the same way that her brothers were allowed to dream. And again, it goes back to the choices that we place between boys and girls, men and women. And so I think that, that is that's the uphill battle that we're facing, right? It's the way in which we're still not creating equity between two genders. And we're still, again, placing a choice before girls and a burden on girls in order to succeed. And we do not put that same burden on boys, and we do not put that same burden on men. And I think that, we can still help each other. We're talking about women helping women. We are each other's advocates, and we try to be each other's advocates, but we also have to shift that onus onto men too, because they ultimately still are very much the ones who have been given positions of power, and they do have that, they have been given the position to affect that change, because there's still not equal representation in government, and there's not equal representation in professional spaces. Wow. And so they need to be part of this conversation. Men also need to be allies, because they are very much that, like I said, that society, that male-dominated society, is why we are where we are and what we're up against.
You're very true, Sabrina, but at the same time, there's so much that needs to change around us. Yes, there'll be people who will be naysayers, there'll be people who are critics, but what I find extremely disturbing is how many girls actually get scared of their own dreams. Even if you give them the wings, sometimes they feel that they're not making the right choices. When they have the choice, what keeps them paralyzed is, what if I make the wrong choice? Mahira, were you ever scared of your dreams? Because you have had a phenomenal, tremendously amazing journey. Did at any point your own dreams scare you? That will I even be able to achieve it?
Oh yeah. Yes, of course. The bigger the dreams, the more scared or fearful you are. But here, I mean, I have to say, my mother was a big advocate of the choice is yours. Oh, really? You want to do this? Really? You want to? And she would say it with a lot of, are you sure? I mean, really, are you ready for it? She would give me that. But my father, the fact that my father, again, a man, like Sabrina said, a man, meaning what I, in a moderately liberal family, still understood as the power position, right? He held the power position. So that person was telling me, go and do whatever you want to do. That was very different from even my mother telling me, go do what you want to do. And that's the difference. So I understood that as, wait a second, the fact that he said it, it means I'm a free bird. Because that's the problem, right? And while Sabrina was talking, I was like, yes. We need male allies. I mean, I can't stress on that enough. Do you know, small things? I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. I mean, I've had a lot of things that I've seen in my career, which are also great. Failures are great, but I've had such great successes. And can I tell you, one of those successes, I truly believe that if my co-actor who was cast opposite me, who was a huge star at that time, if he had looked at it in a way that, why should I do this film? It's her film. I would not have become who I became. He allowed that to happen. He's like, this is it. Okay, fine. But most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time that is not what you're allowed to do, because nobody likes a power shift. And the fact that it's been a patriarchal society for donkey's years, it's not easy. And that's what's happening. It's a power struggle between men and women, and it shouldn't be, because we don't want it to suddenly shift into a matriarchal society. And I might be wrong. I don't. It's just about, it's plain and simple. I want the same opportunities that you have. I want to compete on you on the same pay scale, if on merit. I want to be able to, if I'm getting, just like if I get time off from a maternity leave, surely you can get time off for paternity leave. Really, actually, it's basic. And that's how I explain it when I go into colleges and schools, and I'm like, really, it's that basic. We're complicating and convoluting, and that's why in Pakistan, most of the time, I find it absolutely ridiculous when some of the most educated people I know turn around and say, I'm not a feminist. It blows my mind, because I'm like, do you know what it means? It's not a bad word. It's a very simple. So, and again, look, it comes back to education. So when I'm saying something like, it blows my mind that that some people even in my industry will say, well, I don't believe in feminism and I'm not a feminist. Again, it comes down to awareness. Do they know what they're talking about? Have they been taught that in school? Are we taught what abuse is, what feminism is, what so many things that we constantly talk about, Sidra, in Pakistan? That why aren't we being taught the basics, right? And now all four of us are talking about, fine, we'll get to talking to the basics, but let them get to school first. So it's deep rooted.
Sometimes it's hard.
Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes it's heartbreaking that we're still trying to get the first foot into a school building for girls. For KP, I heard 1 out of every 4 girls is not in school. The numbers are appalling. All over in Pakistan, there are over 20 million kids who are of school going age and they're not going to school. I was a part of another conversation at TCF, and Adil Najam Saab, who's a part of the Boston team, the Boston chapter, he had done a little bit of spade work. He says by the time all the kids in Pakistan of school going age, looking at the ratio of enrollment that is increasing every year, by the time every child is in school, it's probably going to be 2076. Now that's a long time away. And we're trying to make our little contribution and make our little dent in the universe. So I would want you lovely ladies to put your weight behind. The next 3 days are extremely important to us. From the 29th of November to the 1st of December, whatever you donate to TCF is going to be matched and doubled. And at this point, I would also want to hear from all of you that Alhamdulillah, the last 25 years, more than 266,000 kids in school all over Pakistan, and we are very happy to also report that 50% of them are girls. There are over 1,500 schools all over the country, perhaps serving some of the most underserved area, the urban slums and the rural areas of Pakistan. And one thing TCF does not compromise on, these are not garage schools. This is not, okay, let's just put up any kind of a school and make sure the girls, the boys have literacy. It's a state-of-the-art buildings of brick and mortar, giving you the best of education, just like any other high-end school would be. So it's the quality of education and the quality of experience is just like any brilliant school from around the world. So ladies, the floor is yours. Please tell people to come and be a part of our cause. Mahira, if you would like to take the lead, please.
Sure. Do you want me to say it in English or Urdu, or it doesn't matter? However,
दोनों में बात करें. I think ये बात से निकलती है तो तक पहुंचेगी, no matter what language you use.
ठीक है. मैं एक बात जरूर कहना चाहूंगी कि हम लोग, because I'm usually fighting for causes like abuse and rape in our society. When we go out and when we look at why most of the cases are not reported, or when they are, why they're not, no one has been brought to justice eventually, it's because we do not have women sitting in positions of power. We do not have women sitting in positions where they are going to make they're going to have some sort of power to do something. Now, how do we get to do that? That's the aim. The aim is to have women in positions of power. That can only happen through education. If we do not have education, if these girls do not go to school, वो ना पढ़ लिख सकेंगी, वो ना अपने लिए कुछ कर सकेंगी, वो ना इस मुल्क के लिए कुछ कर सकेंगी, वो ना उन पोजीशंस में होंगी जहां जब आपकी बच्ची या मेरी बच्ची या मैं या आप किसी तकलीफ से गुजरेंगे, तो जो वहां बैठा होगा, उस जहां भी समझे पुलिस स्टेशन है या जज है या लॉयर है या डॉक्टर है, जहां वो बैठा होगा वहां एक औरत नहीं होगी. And that is where the trouble comes. I know it sounds, maybe it sounds, for people who are watching right now, that how does it make sense? Believe me, when there is a woman who's handling a case of whether it's rape or whatever, whether she's a doctor or a lawyer or a judge or a policewoman, she will handle it differently. She will be more empathetic to it. That's just how it is. Even in America, they say that that's the reason why most cases don't get reported and go all the way. So this is my appeal to all of you who are watching. आपकी हैसियत में जो भी है, जितना छोटा सा भी है, आप donate करें. I think this is a great cause to be a part of, and the next 3 days are very, very important. And I thank TCF for making me a part of this. Thank you.
मायरा, आपकी बात को आगे बढ़ाते हुए हम अक्सर सुनते हैं पाकिस्तान के किसी भी अस्पताल में जाएं, स्पेशली इमरजेंसी वार्ड में, तो आप जब अपनी बेटी को, अपनी बहन को, अपनी वालदा को लेकर पहुंचते हैं तो आप इंसिस्ट करते हैं कि लेडी डॉक्टर को बुलाएं. लेकिन जब तक आप अपनी बेटियों को पढ़ाएंगे नहीं और उनको लेडी डॉक्टर बनने नहीं देंगे,
बिल्कुल आप सही कह रहे हैं, बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं.
I think thank you for putting your weight behind it. आप लोगों से बात जारी रहेगी. Sabrina, I want to bring this to you as a journalist and especially as a woman who's been covering politics and policy making. I think what Mahira just said was, it hits the nail on the head. We don't have women in decision-making positions, and even the ones who are, they're fewer in number. They're usually cornered. I was recently reading this book, How Women Make Decisions, and they say a woman has to make 2 decisions every time she's making one decision. One is the decision itself, and the other is how will she be looked upon after she's made the decision. So, ye hum pe dohri zimmedari hai. What would you say, Sabrina? Sabrina, I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
Apologies. I muted myself to make sure there's no background noise. I think what Mahira said really hit the nail on the head, that, because you don't have women in these positions of power, because they're not often at the table making decisions, because they are not shaping policy, that's how you see this gap continue to manifest itself. And all of that goes back to education, because if girls are not being educated, they're not being given the chance to rise to those positions of power. And I think, she was mentioning even here in the United States, over here we have a gender pay gap. Women make roughly 70 cents on every dollar that a man makes. So, even in one of the most advanced societies, so it's considered, you continue to have this inequity between men and women. And, I think back to, I was covering in politics, a shutdown of this government that went on for 2 weeks. And, the shutdown was ended by the women in Congress. The men were the ones who were too emotional. The men were the ones who couldn't get past their egos. It was the women here in US government who came together and said, we need to strike a deal. We need to reopen the government. And so I think that a lot of the labels that we ascribe to women are obviously defeating. They are obviously counterproductive and discriminatory in and of themselves. And just to go back to on education, because ultimately it all begins with education, and Human Rights Watch does these studies every couple years. And as of 2018, so I'm sure there's been some change in the numbers, but as of 2018, 32% of girls who are of primary school age were out of school in Pakistan, compared to 21% of boys, and only 13% of girls were still in school by 9th grade. And so you mentioned those statistics from TCF, which I think is exactly why we have to support organizations like TCF, because that they are trying, as you said, we are trying to make sure that there are more girls who are being given that access to education. And there obviously is a focus on underserved areas where the problems are the most entrenched into the culture, into society. And so, I think that's the gap that we're trying to reduce, and why, we hope that everyone is going to continue and support efforts by TCF, because, I think accessing dreams, accessing power, being able to have a voice, it all begins with education.
Sabrina, in fact, I want to bring this one, raw nerve to Riffi. Riffi, sometimes when we see our societies to be conservative and traditional, we see that perhaps educating a girl is at odds with our belief system. But if you look at our religion, the first ever verse was read in the name of thy Lord. And it didn't specify that it's only for the men or the boys. Everybody needs to learn to read and write and seek information and knowledge and wisdom. So why is it that sometimes the traditional society translates that if a girl is educated, she's going to come up and start challenging the value system? She will not carry forth the high ideals of society. Do you sometimes struggle with that notion?
I do struggle with that. It's a really good point. I mean, look at the nature of a woman. I think some of the women that I've grown up with certainly have had to adopt the same male-esque attitudes and persona of how to be a leader, how to be in charge, how to be a politician. And not enough is done to encourage women to embrace their nature, which is nourishing as mothers, which is supportive, which is collaborative. If we stand back and look at the world around us right now, the wars, the hate, the distrust, a woman's nature isn't like that. A woman's nature is to bring people together, whether it's around the table with food, whether it's a family of 5 children, it's bringing that together. And I think we as women need to encourage women to embrace the nourishing softness of a woman and really amplify that and bring that into politics and to every industry. I did an event in Parliament a few years ago called Women to encourage women to speak up. And most of the women in the room didn't know half of the rights, that they could do this. They could join committees. They could have a seat at the table. But in their feminine way. You don't have to be shouty. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to be that way. You just have to turn up and be yourself and express that inner desire of what it is the change you want to see. Secondly, is the classic thing. If it's not you, then who? And if it's not now, then when? I don't want to do it personally, but I realize I have a responsibility because I have been able to make my dreams come true. I have led a very fulfilling career in life. So if I don't put my head above the parapet and say, well, actually, we need to change it and we need to encourage girls to do this. If I don't do it and keep waiting for someone else, nobody's going to do it. And I think that's where TCF is so powerful in its work. It's not just in Pakistan. It has a ripple effect across the world. The whole consciousness of the planet will change if we keep empowering and educating women. As Mahira said, you educate the entire family. That woman's at home. She will nourish her boys to not to stay on the right path, as well as the girls, because she's at home all the time as well. So it's just really important, the work they're doing, and it's very, very, needed in the world today to rebalance the nature of the male and the female and bring us more harmony.
Wonderful. Ladies, now I'm going to do something which
Sorry.
Sure. Please, Mahira, go ahead.
I would like to just say one thing. In my career, there came a point where, just last year, where I thought to myself, I think the idea of a woman who's powerful, who is good at her job and who's breaking all kinds of stereotypes, somehow it's for some reason it's made out to be a dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I wrote that. I wrote it in a letter and I posted it on my Instagram. People get threatened. People look at it as a danger. It's actually the most beautiful thing. It really is. So to sum it up, whether it's Sabrina or Sidra or Riffi, the idea is what needs to change. Mm-hmm. And so we also need to put this out constantly. There was a time where there were times that I would downplay my success. I'd hide from it. I'd be ashamed of it. And last year I was like, no, if this is what I've achieved, then why not? I'm not dangerous. I'm not threatening to anybody. In fact, actually, if you put me in a position of power, I'll probably know, by virtue of me being a woman and what I've been through, I'll probably get people together. I'll probably be way more inclusive because I've gone through a period where I was not included. So actually, it is the most empowering thing for a woman to be in power, I think.
Very true. It's almost like
Yeah.
throw me to a pack of wolves and I'll come back leading them, right? Right. I love that attitude. Now, ladies, I'm about to do something I've never done before on a TCF forum, and this is all because it's a matching campaign. एक दफा आप सबको उर्दू में भी बता दूं जो मैं देख रहे हैं इस वक्त कि 29th of November यानी आज से लेके 1st of December 3 दिन तक आप जो भी डोनेशन जितनी भी अमाउंट का अगर TCF को भेजते हैं, चाहे आप दुनिया में कहीं पे भी हो, आपकी स्क्रीन पे इस वक्त नजर आ रहा है QR कोड, इसको स्कैन कीजिए, डोनेट कीजिए, whether you're in Canada, US, UK, UAE or Pakistan, whatever you donate is going to be doubled up. This is the best end of November Black Friday deal that I can offer. So coming back to my panel. अच्छा जी, हम करते हैं एक रैपिड फायर। आपके बहुत सारे, आप तीनों लोगों के बहुत सारे फैंस हैं। जितनी लड़कियां, जितने लोग आपको देख रहे हैं, they want a personalized take on this, but this will be a rapid fire. So may I request you all to be quick in your responses so that we keep it moving. We'll begin with Mahira, go to Sabrina and Riffi. We'll keep moving like that. Mahira, nothing to be scared of, but हल्के फुल्के से सवाल है। अच्छा जी,
I
सबसे
hope that
पहले
all of you guys are wearing pajamas like I am under my polo neck.
I'm actually borrowing my brother's office and he bichara is having coffee outside because I had no connectivity. But that's another story. अच्छा जी, वापस आते हैं. Okay. First of all, because we're talking about self-empowerment and self-belief, the biggest or the worst self-doubt that you ever faced, and how did you overcome it? Myra.
I thought it was meant to be a rapid fire.
हाँ, rapid fire में बता दे.
Okay, so what was the question? Self-doubt? A moment of self-doubt?
Do you ever face self-doubt and how do you bounce back from it?
Oh yes, many times. I just remind myself why I started in the first place. It's very easy for me to just get out of, I doubt myself, and then I just tell myself, no, wait a second. Do you remember you were this age and you looked at this and you wanted to do this? Go back to that. I just keep going back to my first day.
Right.
So yeah.
Sabrina, the worst criticism that you ever faced?
The worst criticism. Oof. I think it's just that what you're doing is not enough. And that's the burden that we place on women. When you're a woman, you work twice as hard for half the credit. And here I'm in America, so I'm, in a not just a male-dominated society, but also majority white society. So when you're a woman of color, you work 5 times as hard for half the credit. And so it just sometimes it just seems like what you're doing is never enough because that's what you're up against. And so it can be defeating, it can be disheartening, and it can affect your motivation. And so for me, that actually what I've been able to learn over time is that motivates me even more. The more that you place obstacles in front of me, and the more that I'm aware that, because I'm a woman, there are more barriers before me, the harder I'm going to work to prove myself. And I hope there comes a day when women don't have to work harder to prove themselves. But I use it as a source of motivation, a source of empowerment.
Great. Riffi, the nastiest comment you've ever heard for your work or your project?
That's a tough one, actually. I've been quite lucky in my work, actually. Yeah, that's I think it was, for me personally, it was more imposter syndrome. I never thought I was good enough to be where I am. I never thought I was smart enough. And I constantly doubted my abilities, even when I was at the height of my career, doing amazing, primetime shows. And always what I remember is you have to look behind you and see where you've come from. You have to remember that 14-year-old girl and think, wow, oh my goodness, I took the risks. I took chances. There was no backup, there's no safety, but I wasn't going to die. So my message to everyone is to take those risks, because at the worst case scenario, you're not going to die. You'll just pick yourself up and then just keep moving forward one step at a time. So take the chances. And especially because I think of all those girls back in Pakistan, in the village my father comes from, they don't have choices. They don't have opportunities. They can't even afford to fail. And it's a travesty for me and disrespectful if I don't take those chances and push the boundaries and go into new areas to see where life would take me, reach for the stars.
Wonderful. So the last question will be the same question for all of you. The most empowering piece of advice each one of you has received. Mahira.
Oh man. The most empowering piece of advice. I think it would have to be my mother and my father. They both are similar in this respect, where my mother always says to me, even till now, she says, you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to be the first one who stands up for you. You have to love you. You have to look at where you have gone wrong. It has to come from you. And I always used to get upset at that. Even now, I'm like, Amma, what are you saying? Basically, really what she's trying to tell me is, and it's plain and simple, that you empowered yourself, and you are the one who has to take it forward and take care of it as well. The other advice, which nobody ever gave me, but I feel I need to say this to everybody who's watching. This is something I've learned, and I'm very happy that I'm being able to do it in some small way. Is that I think as women like us who have experienced careers like we've had, all four of us, I think it's important for us to pay it forward. Once we've been empowered, I think that's really all we really have to do, and we must do, is that continue the empowerment, I think.
Sabrina, the most empowering piece of advice.
Well, I think it was just that, my parents, who I'm lucky have been very big supporters of my career, always told me that I'm just as capable as anyone else, that I am just as intelligent, that I have every ability to succeed if I want, that there's nothing I can't do if I don't work hard, if I don't set my mind to it. And I think my dad especially, told me early on that, a lot of girls don't have the opportunities that you do. And the kind of society we live in will condition you to think that you are not as capable as your male counterparts. And that simply isn't true, that you're no less than anyone else, and that you can do, just as much, if not more, than anyone else in your field, whatever that may be. And certainly than the men who are a part of that field who want to try and exclude women from succeeding. So I think that is something I carry with me every day. And I tell every girl that I have the opportunity to speak to, that there's nothing standing in your way. And that, if you apply yourself and if you believe in yourself, then trust me, you will be able to do anything.
Absolutely. So if I sum that up, it's like, never be afraid of being the first, because that's the only way that you won't be the last, because you'll open the doors for so many more. Riffi, over to you.
Two women, probably. My mother first, from a young age, was very keen that we, the girls in the family, are financially able to stand on our own feet. It gives you an incredible amount of power and freedom to be your own boss. So that's been invaluable. And I would suggest every girl has the ability to do that. It doesn't matter if you work in a supermarket, if you work in a big bank, just find that path where you are able to secure yourself. And secondly, it was later on in my life, I met this incredible woman who's now passed, and she taught me, you need to find your voice and ask for what you want. You may not get it, but just keep asking in every area of your life for what you want, what opportunities, what breakthroughs, what help you need. just keep asking. If every woman had the gumption, the boldness to ask, even if they think it's never going to be possible, they'll never get it, it changes something. And it's a message that goes out in the universe. Someone, somewhere, something will turn up. And I truly believe that's just been true for me.
I think it reminds me of something my coach once said. She said, if you're not going to ask, the answer will always be no. So yes, get the guts to go out there and actually ask the questions. I want to acknowledge all the people who are watching us live. There are tons of comments who are coming, that are coming in. Rubina Niaz, Samia Bukhari, Alam Nida, Sahil Tanha, and then who else do we have? We have Tahir Niaz, we have Omar Butt, Ambreen Siddiqui, Farooq Khan, we have Imran Khan, all the people. I'm sorry, because the conversation was fast moving, I couldn't really include all the comments, but there's so many people who are sending us their favorite quotes and their most favorite empowering advice. So thank you, ladies, once again for being here. I would use their presence to once again ask you to please donate with an open heart, because every dollar, every cent, every penny that you send us actually keeps her dreams alive, helps us keep all the children in school. 50% of them are girls, and they are at severe danger of dropping out after the COVID has made things worse. So from the 29th of November all the way to the 1st of December, the QR code is right in front of you. Scan to donate, and every amount that you're donating right now is going to be doubled till the 1st of December. I'm so grateful to these three lovely ladies. We had Riffi with us, Sabrina and Mahira, who made time for this very important cause. Just like them, a lot of girls and a lot of young women out there aspire to have flourishing, amazing careers, be the first to break the glass ceilings, be the first to actually make the dreams come true. So thank you, Mahira. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Riffi, for making time, for for your ability to move hearts and minds. What you've done over here cannot be put in words, but we are ever so grateful for your presence.
Thank you, Sidra.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, ladies, this is it for the evening. Once again, to all the people who've been watching us across our socials, we were live on all of the portals and the socials of TCF in US, in UK, and this is just the beginning. With these three wonderful women, we have started the matching campaign. आज से लेके 1 दिसंबर तक आप जो भी अमाउंट TCF के लिए डोनेट करेंगे, उससे ना सिर्फ हम बहुत सारे बच्चों के ख्वाबों को हकीकत बना सकते हैं, उनको स्कूल में रख सकते हैं, बल्कि the additional advantage to that is that that amount is going to be doubled. And seeing is believing. आखिर में एक दफा फिर आपको बताती चलूं, it was 1995. For those of you who are not aware of TCF, the Citizens Foundation had concerned citizens coming in, और इन्होंने फैसला किया कि पाकिस्तान में जो तालीम का गैप है उसके लिए कुछ करना बहुत अहम है. And they started this network that, fast forward 25 years down the line, has been called the largest network of independently run schools by The Economist. We have currently over 266,000 students that are studying in over 1,500 schools. There's a faculty of over 12,000 women, and the female enrollment rate is also 50%. And I've met, and I often reiterate on every forum that I speak at about TCF, जब आप इन बच्चों से मिलेंगे, ये हो सकता नहीं, बल्कि यकीनन ये underserved, underprivileged background से आ रहे होते हैं. लेकिन जो सबसे बेहतरीन बात है TCF एजुकेशन सिस्टम की, वो ये कि इनके अंदर वो कॉन्फिडेंस उभारा जाता है कि ये अपनी बैकग्राउंड पे कभी शर्मिंदा आपको नजर नहीं आएंगे. They learn to take the challenges and the struggles in the stride and to become the best versions of themselves. तो आप इनकी इस ख्वाब को, इन dreams को जिंदा रखिए and come out and donate to us. Inshallah ta'ala, till the next time, I will see you very soon. But I want to tell you that I want to show you, in fact, I now would like the TCF students to join me in thanking you of being a part of our campaign. And when you see their faces, when you see their glowing smiles, you will know exactly what the purpose is. And we love to win with this purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Sidra Iqbal, the Global Goodwill Ambassador for TCF, signing off, but not without letting you meet our students who would like to give you a special shout out of gratitude. Let's take a look.